Guys, welcome back. So I had my other table saw that I've been using for going out in the job and cutting fillers and such. It burned out, so I had to buy a new saw, so I ended up buying this one. And it was super cheap, like 139 bucks plus the tax, but when I get it out of the box and start setting it up, I'm realizing it's just a piece of junk. At least the fence system, you know, this is very sloppy, you know. It takes forever to line it up so that it's lining up straight, you know. If you lock it, you can see it'll lock very easy. In fact, it's very hard to get it to lock straight to the blade. So if I was trying to do any cuts with this thing, then it's just a nightmare. So this is basically just a piece of junk. We're just going to throw that away. And the same thing as this. You can look that it's just sloppy, just basically just garbage. So the rest of the saw isn't too bad a shape. So now what I'm going to do is throw these extra parts away, and what we'll do is we'll super tune this thing so that it works a little bit better. The other thing is too, it doesn't cut near wide enough what I need it. So what I'm going to do now is, first thing I'm going to do is get a piece of plywood, and we're going to put a piece of plywood on top of this thing so that I can cut wider, and then we're going to make a DIY fence system for this thing. So the other thing I wanted to be able to do too is I want to be able to move this thing really easy. And so what I did was, rather than attaching the saw right to the frame, all I did was instead was I just got the bolts. You can see I just put the bolt in the nut, so that when I want to take this thing apart, I just got to lift it up, and it's so light. It's just a one-handed saw, which is what I want. And then when I want to use it, I'm just going to be able to set it up on top of this base, and then it makes it, you know, it's good and sturdy. It's not going to fly off this base. And then that enables me just to pick up my saw, put it in my van, and then pick up my stand and put it in my van as well, just separately. Then when I get to the job site, I'm just going to be able to set it up like that. So I've already made this thing. This is a few days old. But what I'm going to do is just show you how exactly I made it. So all I did is I just took a piece of plywood, and I got it set on top of this thing. Now just find the blade slot there, because it's already cut. Geez, how hard can it be to find that slot? Excuse me, pretty hard. There. So this is my blade slot, and then all I did was I just screwed this down from underneath. I just screwed this piece of plywood down from underneath, and made sure that this plywood was nice and square to the top. And then you can see I just beefed it up a little bit with a couple pieces of plywood. Just a little piece here, and then a couple of pieces. And then this all, I made it so that it all came out the same thickness. So there's 3 pieces of 5/8. And then this piece would be the same thickness as all 3 of them together. And then the back side, the same thing. Just a piece of 1-inch plywood screwed to the edge like that. And then it made for a nice rigid top. Once I had it all set up, then I just raised my blade up through this thing, and then it made for a zero tolerance fence. And I know some of you are thinking, how am I going to change my blade now? Well, it's just as simple as flipping this saw upside down, and I can change the blade from inside. It's very, very easy. So I don't have to have any insert here or anything like that. Unless I was going to use dado blades on this, but I'm not going to use dado blades on it. This is just going to be strictly just for a ripping saw on the job site for ripping fillers. So now what I'll do is I'll get that screwed down from underneath, and then I'll show you the fence system that I've made. So this thing wasn't too elaborate to make. All it is just a little bit of plywood. No, I still got it locked down, so I'll loosen that knob off. And what we'll do is slide it off and just show you how I made it. So this channel, or this beefed up section here, what I wanted to do is I want to use that's what I'm going to be pulling on to bring my fence nice and straight. So all I did I wanted something, I had to beef this up pretty good, so I just added 3 pieces of plywood together. That's to give me enough width to hook my fence down, so that it gives me something to keep it nice and straight And then all I did was add a couple of other pieces of plywood to the bottom, and then this upright piece. Now the big secret to making this successful is to add lots of screws, to pre-drill it and add lots of screws to this to make it nice and rigid. You can see I've got quite a few here on the bottom. This was to hold it all together nice and tight, and the same thing on this back side here. This was the most imperative one, this back piece, because that's actually what I'm going to be pulling on, because when I tighten this bolt down, you can see where it's going to come out on the inside. That head's going to come out, and it's going to hit against the back side of this thing and pull out on it, and that's going to make this thing straight to the saw blade. The other thing that I did too that made it a little bit better, as you can see on this back side, I've got a little channel made here as well, like this, and I made it so that when, I'm just going to slide this on now. When I slide this on, you can see that it was pretty much tight, and the reason why I did that is now when I tighten this up, you'll see that this will actually pull back a little bit, and what that does is it actually engages this back, so that pulls everything tight. Then the back side of this fence is nice and tight. So, pretty straightforward. I didn't even thread. All I did was just make a little bit undersized hole, and then I just forced this bolt into it. So now that it's been in there for a while, it's threaded real nice. I sprayed a little bit of WD-40 in on it too, and it seems to be holding real good. I've been using this saw quite a little bit at my job site, and it worked great. And then all I did was just take and cut a circle out here with the hole saw, and then drilled a little bit smaller hole, pre-drilled it a little bit in, and then just beat this bolt in there, and that just gives me an easy dial here to use. So then, like I showed in the first of the video, I'm just going to be able to slide it over without doing any tinkering or fooling. Just pull this, tighten this knob down, and that's going to set it nice and square to my saw blade, and yeah, it just makes it a lot quicker. I wasn't going to fool around with that other fence at all. And all I did is to get this running straight, I just, once I had this channel made, then I laid this piece on top and then screwed it down, and then I had to keep measuring. I had to measure the distance on either side of the blade to make sure this was running nice and square. And once it was running square, I just screwed it down and then beefed it up with a little bit more plywood. And you could change the way that you do this too, of course. This was just done in a real hurry because I needed a table saw. Mine burned out, and I needed to have something for the job site to cut fillers, and literally just spent an hour or two on this to make it. And real happy, real glad that I didn't spend the $600 on a higher quality saw, because this one's going to do just fine, and it actually gives me a nice width to rip too. So hopefully you guys are having fun watching. Hopefully you'll keep tuning in. I may at a later time make a sled for this thing as well, and if I do, I'll shoot a video to show you that. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.